Today, we're going to be talking about how to make some money filming events and weddings. Here are top 10 tips for clueless beginners. So in this video, I'm going to go over what a typical event or wedding looks like, how to capture some of those moments, and how much you should charge in the beginning stages. And the big takeaway in this video is that you don't need the most expensive gear. Last month, I challenged myself to shoot with the Sony a6400 and the 18-135 kit lens, and honestly, it is good enough. You will at least need one camera, one very versatile lens, and one very sturdy tripod. There will be a lot more gear investments that you have to make. You gotta spend money to make money. I'm sure you heard of that before. But don't worry, I'll go over all the necessary gear that you will need in order of importance so you know what to focus on first and then what to focus on next. By the way, if you are in the Los Angeles area, I will be doing a talk on wedding videography and wedding filmmaking at Samy's Camera, the Fairfax location, on November 9th. That's a good time to be asking me questions about the wedding business and any follow-up questions that you might have after watching this video. More info is in the description box below, so check it out. I hope to see you guys there. Anyways, let's go ahead and jump into this video. So the first most important thing when it comes to filming an event or a wedding is to figure out how long the final video is going to be, and that's something that you're gonna have to communicate with your client. Is it gonna be a 60 to 90 second recap video only? Or is it gonna be a 3 to 4 minute highlight video? Or is it going to be a 20 to 40 minute mini documentary? Regardless of what they're asking for, it's always better to overshoot than to undershoot, because then you'll have a lot more material to work with when you edit the final video. But it's also good to know when enough is enough. We definitely don't want to overshoot too much now. I know it's a little bit confusing, but don't worry, we're gonna get into more details later on in the video. Now, regardless of the deliverable in these videos, you gotta aim for a story. You gotta have a beginning, middle, and end. And the beginning is pretty easy. You just have to do an establishing shot of the event, maybe where it's being held, the location, the scenery, and all that stuff. The middle is kind of where you tell why this event is being held. What's the purpose of this event? And obviously, the end, you want a wrap up, people clapping, people cheering. You want to tell that the event was a success. For the person who's watching the end of that video, there should be some sort of lasting impression on them, a call to action of some sort if they want to sign up for next year's event. Or if they're watching a wedding video, you want them at the very end to be like, "Aw, what a cute video. Let me book this person." And cha-ching, you got a new client. Moving on to number 2, in every event, there's gonna be some sort of talk of some sort. If you watch the keynotes of Apple or Google or Nintendo even, you know that there's always gonna be people that are coming up on stage presenting about their latest product or their latest video games. And at these events, you'll likely be shooting interviews as well. You might be conducting an interview with a high-profile person or someone of importance to that particular event. Or maybe even testimonials. Whoever hired you could be asking you to walk around the show floor, asking people who are attending this event, you know, what did they think about it? What did they like about it? What did they got out of this particular event? And if you're shooting weddings, there's gonna be customized, personalized vows from the couple, or a letter reading, and speeches from their family. All of these particular speech talks and whatnots, this is where you're gonna siphon materials for your story for your final video. That is why we are now gonna talk about the importance of audio. Number 3, audio is the most important aspect when it comes to capturing events and weddings. And I would argue that after getting your camera, audio recorder should be the next big investment that you should get. Here's the thing, people will always forgive terrible video footage, but they will never forgive garbage audio. There was this one time I was at a concert, I was in the pit, I was super close to the stage, I whipped out my smartphone. Yeah, I'm one of those people. But hey, cut me some slack. All the people in front of me were pulling out their smartphones too, okay? Anyways, I had a smartphone that at the time, it was one of the first ones to be able to capture 4K videos. And there I was capturing crispy 4K video footage. I uploaded the same night and everybody was trashing how terrible the audio sounded for my video. And I was like, well, at least the video looks super clear. But that didn't matter to them. There were videos that were being uploaded at 720p from an iPhone, super shaky video footage, but it got like thousands and thousands of upvotes because the audio sounded really good. The sound equipment that you will need to capture these audio would be one direct recorder and maybe 1 or 2 lav mics minimum. I'll have the specific ones that I use in the description box below, as well as my newly crafted kit for event shooters. And Craig Adams from Wedding Film School, back when he was still doing it, had a really good set of cables to go along with the audio recorder. But unfortunately, he doesn't have that up anymore. I will also be including that in the description box below, as well as that kit. So once you get your audio set down, the next thing to focus on is to avoid shaky footage. So you haven't already yet, number 4, get yourself a cheapy tripod. Doesn't have to be anything fancy, just a tripod with 3 legs that's steady, sturdy, and that can hold a camera setup. This will allow you to have multi-cam action. You can set up this cheapy tripod with a ultra-wide angle camera, whether it be a GoPro or an Osmo Action Pocket. Just set up in a corner. It'll be your master wide that you can always cut back to in editing. We call this a multi-cam edit. If you have a master wide angle that you can always cut to, you'll be shooting with a main camera to capture close-ups and detail shots. That way, if your main camera is shaky or wasn't recording or rolling, you have that master camera to fall back to when you're putting together the final video. Moving on to tip number 5, after you get yourself a cheapy tripod, eventually you want to get yourself a really good tripod with a fluid head. I would say that would be the next most important investment to get after getting your set of audio recorders, because a good tripod will last you a lifetime. And you want to get one with a really good smooth fluid head, because that will allow you to get the smoothest tilt and pan shots, and that will add a lot of production quality and professionalism to your final video. Now you may be wondering, what about a monopod? I heard having a monopod is super important for events and weddings. I would argue that's a later investment, because there's still a lot of other gear that we have to get through in this video that I feel that are a lot more important than getting a monopod for now. But of course, once you have all your most important gear covered, that's when you can probably get a monopod if you feel like you need it. Moving on to number 6, events happen really quickly. If you ever shot weddings before, you know how fast things can go. So moments are ever fleeting. Having a camera or a lens with some sort of image stabilization will help a lot. There'll be times where you have to act quick. You just have to handhold the camera to get the shot. There's no time for you to get a monopod or a tripod. So having some sort of image stabilization built into the camera body or the lens would just kind of help smoothen out the footage when you're trying to capture the moment. Moving on to number 7, after you lock yourself down with a really good camera, a very versatile mid-range zoom lens, a good set of audio recorders, and a really good sturdy smooth tripod, the next big investment that I would say that you should get is a 70-200mm f4 or a 70-200mm f2.8. This lens is especially important when you're shooting a presentation or a talk on stage, when you can't get too close to the speaker but you still want to get that close-up of them. And a 70-200 lens is really good to capture candid moments. You don't want to walk up with your wide angle lens up to the person and get them mingling and talking. They'll be freaking out. They'll be like, why is this camera here? Should I be smiling? Are you the photographer? No, you are the videographer. You want them to act natural in their habitat. So having that 70-200 racking in on them at 200 and capturing their most vulnerable moment, that's what you want. Actually, vulnerable is not the right word. You want to go for the candid moments, capturing the candid moments. Now I just feel creepy. If you can't get a 70-200 right now, minimum I would say get yourself an 85mm lens or a 135mm lens, but eventually the end game is you want to get a 70-200mm lens. Moving on to number 8, and this is something that I would have argued to be one of the first things to get, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized that a gimbal or a stabilizer is just really hard to master. It takes some time to get used to. And I think people, especially people who hire you and the people who are watching the video, rather have good audio and good stable video footage as opposed to a lot of messy stabilized footage from a stabilizer. So once you get everything listed above, then you should consider getting a gimbal. Really spend the time to practice to getting those smooth and steady shots. Tip number 9, order of importance. So earlier in the video, I mentioned it's best to overshoot rather than undershoot, because then you will have more materials to work with when you're putting together the final video. But I also did mention that it is good to recognize when enough is enough. You definitely don't want to get overwhelmed trying to capture every little thing. You want to focus on the most important thing. So here's how. The first thing to do is to be aware of the schedule. Any events, any weddings will have an itinerary. If they don't, then their event was doomed to fail anyways. But yeah, get the schedule, screenshot it on your phone or print it out because it's good to know when certain events are happening. Let's say, for example, at 5 o'clock, there will be someone speaking on stage. So at 4:45, you want to start setting up your tripods and your cameras. That's when you want to start miking up the speaker or plugging in that audio recorder to the DJ's feed. Knowing when certain events happen will help you prepare for that particular event. The next thing to focus on is to prioritize once in a lifetime moment. For example, if someone is speaking on stage and you're not capturing that, you're more focused on the bartender serving drinks to people, then you're doing this all wrong. Focus on the important people, whether it be shooting at a wedding where the couple is interacting with their grandparents. You want to be definitely focusing on that instead of going out and getting establishing shots or detail shots. You want to be focusing on the most important people that are there and the people that are interacting with each other. These types of moments cannot be replicated, so it's good to always prioritize those types of shots first. Anything that you can get later, just get it later. And if you really need to get that establishing shot, but you missed it the first time around and it's getting late and it's dark, try to get it the next day, or for the next time, just show up a little bit earlier and get that shot first. By now, you might be wondering, what about getting a drone? Isn't a drone important for events and weddings? To be honest, with how strict drone laws are nowadays and the license needed to fly one for business, I wouldn't worry too much about getting one in the beginning. In fact, I myself haven't flown the drone much this year. Instead, I've been relying a lot on stock footage lately and use those for establishing shots for events and weddings that I shoot. Storyblocks Video has a fantastic selection of drone shots as well as other quick HD or 4K video clips for B-roll, After Effects templates, or motion backgrounds. And since they've been a sponsor of my channel for a few months now, I've been finding myself using more and more of their clips thanks to the unlimited downloads in the membership library. Check out storyblocks.com/JasonVong and see if there are any clips that could potentially help you for your next project. New clips are being added on a regular basis, so check back from time to time to see what's new. So this ran a little bit longer than I've expected, and I literally have to go shoot a wedding right now. So I'm gonna let my voiceover take over the rest of the video. Apologies for the awkward B-roll as everything's happening, but yeah, let's finish up the video. Number 10, let's finally talk about money. How much should you charge for filming an event? Honestly, there isn't a straight answer because there are a lot of factors to consider besides the hours that you are required to be there, such as the demand for videographers in the area that you live in, editing, potential equipment rentals or purchases, difficulty of the project, the amount of team members involved, travel costs, etc. Pretty much the cost that you need to figure out to run your business. Now, it seems overwhelming and you might not profit much or even at all in the beginning, but trust me, as you get more experience and get even better at what you do, you will know how to price yourself better. One thing is for sure, as a solo shooter, you should be charging more than minimum wage, at least double. I would avoid charging hourly and instead charge a half-day rate or a full-day rate. Since you're committed to being at the event anyway, it would be a waste of your time if the client only wants you there for an hour or two. For example, you can do a half-day rate for $150. That would be roughly $37.50 per hour. So even if your client needed you for only 2 hours, you are still guaranteed $150, which is worth coming out for, instead of the $75 you would get for only doing 2 hours of work. And if your client needs you there longer than the agreed time, then you can start charging per additional hour that you're there for. When I first got started, I was being paid $350 to about $500 for a full day shoot as a second shooter at weddings, and about $600 to $900 to first shoot a wedding for a full day. Aside from the shoot, if you are the one editing the video, then you gotta charge for that too. Again, if you're unsure how much to charge, always start with at least charging more than minimum wage. Generally, editors also charge a flat rate with 1 or 2 changes allowed to the clients. If the video starts going over 2 drafts, then editors would have to charge for the additional time to make those changes. So, do you see what I mean earlier by there being no straight answer? On top of that, if you're licensing music, then you gotta bill that to the client. If there's a special equipment that is needed, but it's expensive to buy on your own, but a client really needs it, then you gotta bill the client for it. If it's a far drive, then you gotta get mileage reimbursement from the client. So a good piece of advice for me is to total the cost of everything. Itemize everything that is needed, including the hours for you to be there, and make sure your client is aware how much they're going to be paying you. Get a 50% deposit before showing up to the event, and then make sure to get the rest of the payment after the event. Nothing's worse than being withheld payment. Hopefully this gave you a better idea on how much to charge. So I kind of cheated and recorded this right before I left for the wedding, but if you have any sort of follow-up questions about how to film events and weddings, let me know in the comments down below and I'll see if I can put together a follow-up video. But if you are in the Los Angeles area, again, I'll be at Samy's Camera November 9th. I'll be talking about wedding videography, wedding filmmaking, and the whole wedding business. So come with questions and I will try to come with some answers. More details are in the description box below. And let me know in the comments down below what else I can do to help you guys with your videography or photography career. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.